Okay.
You know, one of the best things about being unedited is it's very true to our immutability kind of ethos, right?
Yeah, nothing is prepared, nothing is planned.
Yeah, you know, it's raw, it's the real deal. If you make a mistake, you know, it's put down. So Donald, a lot of people don't realize that you are one of the crypto OGs. You've been in this space for a while. I mean, I saw like you did an interview. You did interviews quite a few years ago with like Vitalik and other people. Like, how did you get into this?
Bueno, I heard about Bitcoin for the first time in 2012, and I saw the white paper and I didn't get it, and then tried to read on in Wikipedia, and but was distracted with other things. I just didn't get it. And then in January of 2013, I had my podcast about financial technology and tech startups.
Oh, you
And
already had a podcast for fintech. Okay.
yeah, it was called New Finance Nation, and the channel is still there. It has like 200 interviews,
Oh, wow.
and it's still there on YouTube. And I was I had I was interviewing people from Personal Capital, eToro, and they were just regular fintech startups, Mint, all those companies. Um, Lending Club. And one day there's this company, Expensify, and I interviewed one of the guys there, and he was like all worried and nervous. What happened is that I sold Bitcoin at 70 and now it's trading at 90. And I said, what? Bitcoin? And that's how I got in again, or I heard again, and I started to follow that. And during 2013, I did many interviews, and I migrated from normal fintech to Bitcoin. Yeah, and I met everybody from Vitalik. Vitalik and we started a show because he was invited by another person that worked for Bitcoin Magazine, and he said, "Oh, we should bring Vitalik." So he participated in a show. So we did 2 or 3 interviews with him, and then Charlie Lee, Roger Ver. Roger was normal at the time.
What's normal? What was
Mike,
normal at the time? But was that before Bitcoin Cash?
yeah, it was like you and me talking now about the virtues of Bitcoin and stuff like that. Not like now that he's like a very I don't know, like he looks like a populist trying to gather people for BCH as if it were a
Wants to
political
save
party.
babies. He's trying to
Uh,
save babies right now. You know, babies are dying, and he's doing his best.
yeah. Yeah, so that's the story with New Fination. And so I'm rather than OG, I would say I'm in the middle. At the time, all the people that were new in 2013, we were all the newbies. To the point, I was so new that, and because I come from Wall Street, I even wrote an article explaining why fiat was better than Bitcoin.
That's amazing. I feel like everybody that's authentic has a moment where they were like converted. You know, like watching CNBC and watching Joe Kern.
Yes, yeah, exactly the same.
You know, where, you know, at the beginning it's like, what's this nonsense? And then it's just the most authentic thing to watch somebody change their mind with information.
Yes.
So I definitely need to read this article. Can I find it, or have you like eviscerated every single shred of evidence?
Bueno, what's funny that it's also I felt the Bitcoin toxicity for the first time thanks to that article. New Fination had like, I don't know, 100, 200 traffic of 100, 200 people per day. And suddenly it had like 1,000, no? because everything that I all the interviews and everything that I did and I posted, I just posted them on the Bitcoin Reddit. But that specific article, for some reason, it got them totally angry, and they left like 20 comments in the comments on the blog, and on Reddit they had like 50 negative comments saying that I was an asshole, an idiot, I don't know anything. Who is this guy? Everything, and I was like totally like. It's the first time that I felt like a swarm of bees attacking me.
Oh, so that
So
was the
yeah, I was.
first time you got like trolled. That was the first time that you had that toxic reaction from a.
Yes, yes, yes. And those are the things also that make you fall in love. Like you said, the authenticity. And the fact, and not only that, the trolling was extremely intelligent, because I had been on Twitter for a while already at that time, by 2013 in politics. I remember fighting with people about Obama and Romney in the 2012 election and stuff like that. So it's not that I didn't know about trolling, but the trolling was very special because it was very smart, very intelligent, and extremely knowledgeable about economics, Wall Street, fiat money. I mean, I was learning by the critics. Incredible, incredible, incredible experience.
Yeah, that's one of the best parts of all of this is that you're forced to learn against your will. Like if you really are one of those people that wants to be part of the conversation, it's going to be, without your choice, you're going to get, there's going to be an onslaught of knowledge just dumped on,
Yes,
yeah. And it's very easy to see the difference between what's valid after enough time. You see the arguments. Whenever I'm arguing with somebody about like, Bitcoin's not a currency because you can't go to the bar and spend it. Okay, if you took gold and gave it, it doesn't have value. They say, okay, if you give gold to, will he accept it? Like after you do this enough times, you start having all these automatic arguments, and it's easier to convince other people too.
Yeah. It's like you go recording in your mind all the arguments and you exercise them.
And then you look at, some of the people that I have arguments with. I'm like, do you realize you're dueling with someone who's been doing this a lot more than you? Like, it's fascinating. And yeah, you're an OG, man. I mean, I would even consider myself an OG, and I've only been in this for, a year.
That's another. Yeah. You feel like an OG. We feel like an OG because we've been punched so many times, and it's like coming from war.
and like we're still so early on in adoption. I was on a panel the other day, and somebody asked, when am I going to be able to buy a pizza? Like normally, when is everyday life going to be with Bitcoin or one of these cryptos? I'm like, maybe 10 years from now. Like, just
yeah.
And I honestly, think that might be the case.
Speaking of time and OGs, the fact that I feel like new from 2013, but if you think about it, 6 years. So time passes by so fast, especially when you're so passionate about something.
Yeah, no, that's a lifetime in this industry. That's before 98% of the coins we talk about. Yesterday I was interviewing Beam. Mimblewimble didn't exist in 2013. So, and I'm sure, a few years from now, that's going to be one of the main protocols people talk about. That's a fascinating one. What do you think about the Satoshi reveal that's going on right now?
I think it's another clown. It's incredible because they got emails from people. I don't know if you got an email from them who subscribed me to that email list, and and I went to the website and it was down because everybody evidently trying to check it out. At some point yesterday, I went and I just browsed the whole thing. It's a very long article, and it sounds totally like a clown. I saw something that the Bank of International Settlements or something, and the person got the name from there, Bitcoin.
Yeah.
It's so ridiculous.
Yeah, no, it's obvious. I mean, it feels obvious. Do you consider something like the Satoshi reveal a social attack?
The Satoshi reveal. Bueno, I think that when I wrote about that proof of work blockchains like Ethereum Classic and Bitcoin are constantly under under constant social attack, I included everything. So that would be a social attack as well. But there's many social attacks that are inoffensive, like when people say, "Oh, it's not going to work. These are just libertarians" and stuff like that. Those are like inoffensive attacks. A reveal of someone is Satoshi. I don't think that who is Satoshi is important anymore. Maybe it's good if Satoshi comes out and does like a documentary explaining everything. It would be very interesting and clarify the principles and everything. But I think that that would be just another opinion at this point. Bitcoin has evolved further than Satoshi, in my opinion.
Well, I would hope that So personally, I'm of the belief that he, she, them should never reveal themselves at this point. I think it would be a negative, just because it would create this desire for people to, look to someone for direction, for answers. It would also, put into question, like, it just, I don't think it's even a possibility at this point. And on the social attack nature of somebody doing something like this, yeah, I agree that it's more on the inoffensive side. I mean, ultimately, most people know that this person's a clown. I think that Craig Wright was probably a more serious version of a Satoshi faker. So
when the life cycle of Craig Wright started as a inoffensive, another person saying that they are Satoshi, but ended up actually supporting the Big Block group in 2017, and that was, I think, the most severe attack that it was social and technical at the same time that Bitcoin ever suffered. So whether he says that it's Satoshi or not, maybe he used that as leverage, and evidently a lot of people believe him, but that turned to be a very serious attack.
Yeah, I'm under the impression that he probably, convinced the wrong people that he was Satoshi, and now he just had to double down.
Yes.
Because behind the scenes they were going to kill him if he didn't pull it off.
Yeah, and I learned recently that he was paid by this billionaire from Calvin Ayre.
Yeah,
He was paid for the whole story. So basically, the whole story about this fake Satoshi is already sold. So he has to fake for the rest of his life. If not, he's going to have to return the money or something. So now he has a real incentive other than being crazy to keep the story going.
Yeah, I wish I could have some sympathy for him, but during the whole BCH thing, he went nasty. He almost seemed like a real world villain. Some of the things he was posting about, blowing people's houses down, and that he's the big bad wolf that's going to show you how he can take the price of Bitcoin down to 500. And there was just a lot of nasty behavior, which made him completely unsympathetic character. I think it's going to be a good movie when it comes out.
Yeah, there has to be a movie about everything.
Yeah,
maybe with several sequels.
I think that I think it's gonna be a Quentin Tarantino movie.
Of the whole saga, I think that is a good example, no? Craig Wright, no, because he is, digamos, he does a severe attack when he tries to split the network, and successfully did it with his friends, with Roger, etc. Created BCH. So that's the most, I would say, the highest level of attack. The then he attacked that second split, and he created another split. And then he attacked socially, purely socially, by suing people in the industry,
Right.
Bitcoin maximalists and podcasters.
Yeah. What Bitcoin did? Peter McCormick. I know he's
Peter McCormack. Yeah, but I troll him all the time. But but uh, but I supported him when he was sued by Craig Wright and Hodlonaut. Yeah, so that would be a second level because it doesn't end up in a split of the network or adding new rules to the network or changing the monetary policy. But it's a constant attack, and normally these things are used by politicians, as it was seen recently with the Libra hearings, used by politicians as arguments to attack crypto. No, so there were politicians saying that crypto had to be shut down, that it's only for crooks. Because Craig Wright is now using that narrative as well, and that it's just money from thin air and things like that. All these things come from. They read the news, they see who's criticizing Bitcoin, from Nouriel Rubini in New York to Jamie Dimon to Craig Wright, and they package everything, and then they create potentially new legislation or new regulations. So those are very serious as well, and purely social, not technical. And then the silly attacks like, oh, it's not gold, gold is better, and things like that. Those debates are not
leadership stuff. Yeah.
Not very important.
So there is a real danger in some of this ridiculous rhetoric, because if it's packaged up and presented in a certain way, it could create regulation that, yes. I mean, I've consumed enough Andreas Antonopoulos videos to know that it's never, it's unstoppable, but it will slow down innovation and adoption if regulation were to get in the way.
That's an interesting thing. If it's truly unstoppable, why do we worry?
Right.
And if we should worry, then it's not unstoppable. So that's a dilemma that I guess that we suffer. I think that it is unstoppable. The operating network, we can declare that as a fact, as long as nobody has 50% or more, or 50% plus one of hashing power. Even with
the incentives are well enough balanced that even with a 51%, I don't think that's a fear anymore.
Even with more than 50%, you cannot change the rules and the nodes.
And then fork it off, and then we'll stop using your version of the chain. We'll start using somebody else. I think what you've identified is the importance of the social layer. That the technologically, it's bulletproof. At this point, it's up to us as a community to educate and to continuously, do this, these discussions, right? It's education discussions and not giving up, having representation in Congress when they have these hearings. Like, Meltem did such a great job during the Libra hearings, I think.
Mm-hmm. When I think that at the social layer there is some margin of risk. When I wrote about systemic risks, one of the risks is the social layer. For example, the social layer, even when Bitcoin grows and ETC grows to be massive, like trillions of dollars, and managing real apps and stuff like that, still somehow all the nodes of the world and devs and miners could agree to change the monetary policy, for example.
Right.
So there are, however unlikely or improbable, there's still a systemic risk there. And that's why I think that people are going to diversify the networks in the future, Bitcoin and ETC and other networks. because you cannot have everything on top of one.
So are there any other social attacks happening on BTC now as we speak?
I think the only on the technical level, at the network level, I don't think that there's any debates, the almost open debates about any technical issue, any BIP that is controversial. The last technical debate, which I actually supported, was led by by Luke Dashger, or Dash Junior. I don't know.
Dash Junior, yeah, Luke Dash Junior, father of seven. He's got so much time on his hands. I don't know how he does it all.
But he proposes to reduce the block size to 300, from 1 megabyte to 300 kilobytes. And well, first I was against that, and I spoke to him and other engineers on Bitcoin, and they didn't see it as a social engineering. They just see it as purely technical because of the bandwidth growth over time is lower than the growth of the blockchain.
Right.
So every day that passes, for anyone who wants to download a node in a regular computer, on average, it's getting more difficult and more difficult and more difficult, and the population of nodes is reducing, which I think is because of the bear market that we just lived. Now it's up again, but the risk is that it could reduce permanently. No.
And then, well, there's also no incentive other than altruistic ones to operate a node. Although in like Lightning Network, one can argue why, operating a Lightning node has a monetary incentive. There isn't one for operating a full node in Bitcoin.
Well, there's no direct incentive, direct financial incentive. There is an incentive if you are
validate, and
if you're a business, it's almost certain that you want to have your own nodes and your own infrastructure for security reasons. And as a consumer, if you have a lot of money, you don't want to use third-party nodes. You want to use your own nodes. So I guess there is a threshold. If you have $1,000, maybe you just have your money even at Coinbase. But if you have $1,000, you're not going to have a node just for your $1,000. Right. But if you have 100,000 or $500,000 or $1 million, and it's an important part of your savings, I think that at some point people are going to be educated that you could be fooled when you use third-party nodes and stuff like that. So there is a non-monetary incentive, I think.
Yeah. No, I think that that speaks to why decreasing the block size is important, though. The fact that these are, most people that are operating them are doing it out of the reason for they operate a business. A lot of people are doing it out of altruistic reasons. And today that's possible, right? It's not a huge cost, but I see the point. I've also heard the argument that if the block size stays small, when there are no longer miner rewards, the fees can be high enough because of a smaller block.
Yeah. Well, Luke's idea is only because of the bandwidth growth, as relative to the blockchain growth.
And that's specifically to keep the nodes decentralized, to have enough nodes where everybody can run one, versus having an Infura model for Bitcoin or something.
Yeah, he has a rationale that there should be nodes everywhere in every country around the world for 24 hours, because when it's night in one side of the world, then that side of the world could be partitioned and attacked, and then people wake up and everything is a mess. So there is a rationale. Mainly is the one that I told you about bandwidth and weight, and it's also just one point of the life cycle of a node, which is the initial download only. That's the main issue that he feels has to be solved, and that he doesn't see a solution other than reducing it. However, that reduction of, as a leader of that movement, he's not pushing it very hard, and he has many other engineers, Bitcoin engineers, and scientists in the ecosystem not supporting it very strongly. So it's a weak. So that is one thing. The original question was if there are open social attacks at this point. So technical, that's the only thing, and I don't think it's a social attack. It's just a technical proposal. But at the social layer, yes, I think that I even tweeted a calendar of the social attacks against the Bitcoin community. No, at the beginning they used to say that they were just silly cypherpunks with silly ideas.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
So and today,
every year, yeah.
Even this weekend, I mean, there was a huge launch by what can be called altcoiners and no coiners, saying that all Bitcoin maximalists are fascists, or trolls or bullies and stuff like that. So it's a long conversation, but it has to do with the whole model of leaderless and systems with no top-down governance, that they will always naturally generate these extreme groups, opposing groups, just because there's no leader.
Right.
So the only way of, especially there's no voting, no leaders, and no system of decision other than rough consensus. So then intransigent minorities will always live permanently in that kind of environment. So they're not fascist or anything like that. They're just people who have their beliefs, and they're protecting the integrity of Bitcoin and a set of values. And I think it's perfectly legit. So it's perfectly legit for both sides to have their own arguments.
Yeah, I think there's definitely been some discussion lately connected to Bitstein station, but from my perspective, it's not. These aren't serious threats compared to the BCH days during that fork. That was definitely a lot more like every day. Hey, what's going on? What's going to happen? To switch gears, because I know that you're also super invested in the ETC community, and I'm sure that a bunch of ETC people are going to watch if me and you are talking. Do you think that there's any social attack happening on ETC currently? I mean, I saw some of your videos. Last year around December, is when kind of things had come to a peak of activity. Since then, I think there's been enough time to look at, what happened as a result, what people's motivations may or may not be. Where are you now? What do you think? Is there an active social attack?
Well, I think that Ethereum Classic is a small community, so at the social layer, it is easier with less resources to move things in the community, opinions or to start like changes in the protocol to the social layer and stuff like that. I would say since I've been active in ETC since July of last year, I would say three things. The first thing was all this collaboration with Ethereum. At the beginning, I saw because that's another thing. This social attack is not that it's only a function of no leaders or no top-down governance. It's also a function that we are in a period where it's period where there's a very aggressive competition between the systems that they all want to win a market share, and because everybody, I think, subconsciously know that very few are going to live. It's not going to be like maximalists say that it's only one, like Bitcoin, but it's going to be 3 or 4 only. I've seen in the last 200 years, study all the format wars, from trains to electricity, etc. And there's only one. And if there's a group, it's 3 or 4, and that's it. The number 5 is already very small, and all the rest are totally insignificant. So I think that that is also what, it's not only defense of the integrity of the blockchains, but also competition between who's going to win. No? So in that context, I saw last year the collaboration with Ethereum. For example, that they came to the ETC summit was already for me like a dissonance in my mind.
Right.
And even speaking with Griffith, what's his first name? The representative from the foundation.
From EF, you mean Virgil or who?
Virgil. Let me go back. Okay. Yeah, speaking with Virgil, he came to talk to Igor and me. And he said, oh yeah, one thing that I would like to do is for the virtual machine that you guys are making, because at that time it was like everybody was impressed with Sputnik VM. Yeah, we want, what do you say if we give you a grant of $5,000 and you integrate it in Ethereum? Something like that. I didn't hear very well. And Igor was a little bit like cold. First, because why would ETC Dev be working for Ethereum?
Right.
Second, he said something like, that first thing he didn't say, but he did say it's open source. Why don't you just do it? And and third, I felt a little bit. It was a little bit offensive to say $5,000. Like it was something very.
The value of all of our time and effort, and yeah.
Yeah, it was a little bit offensive because a collaboration like that, you would do it for free, and then okay, what do you think $10,000? So it was even worse. So this treatment in that context that I told you of the format war, and if you see that all these F compatible networks like EOS, Ethereum, ETC, Tezos, they're all Ethereum. Even Libra is Ethereum. Ethereum is the winning standard in terms of design. We don't know what is the network that is going to win, the implementation, but the Ethereum, I think, is already declared the winner. But in this context where we don't know who's going to win as a network, I thought that this collaboration was not a good idea. And then a few weeks later came the donation of $150,000 from the Ethereum Foundation to ETC Cooperative. That put me very nervous, and it was even worse because it continued the same tone. If we read Virgil's letter, at that time, I don't remember the wording, etc., but it was very condescending. And then, and it didn't seem to have any purpose other than establishing that ETC is like the little child of Ethereum, and that is not a very good image in the market. In terms of the market observing this, the market needs to know who's going to win, because they're going to start building once they know which are the winning technologies. For now, everybody's testing and doing experiments and throwing money from one little project to the other. But real building is going to start when you know who is going to. Or weeks later, the same amount was redonated back to, at the time, Apri was just an Ethereum parity developer, and it was a donation to this Koti network, which now I see the function, etc., as a testnet, because I'm more into the ECIP process and this Atlantis fork, so I see the value of the testnet, etc. But at the time, I saw, why do you get money, receive like a condescending, like it was delivered as if it was a gift to a
back to you, just to be given back to you.
Ethereum, no?
Yeah.
So all those, so that was all this thing. Well, the long story short, everything evolved to a point where I said, okay, I cannot do anything about this collaboration. There was even a video between ETC Labs Core and Joseph DeLong of Ethereum, and I said, okay, I'm going to stop bothering them about this, because again, it's not a serious social problem. And I even had the idea of saying, okay, wait, etc dev and Igor and me, we were trying to create this two-level system where you had the base layer and then then sidechains on top, and we were marketing Orbita at the time. What if Ethereum is a second layer? Because Orbita was going to be proof of stake and proof of authority, etc. The research was being done by Darcy and Isaac. Very good research about what was the best system for layer 2. And it wasn't proof of work, because proof of work on top of proof of work didn't make much sense for them. So I said, if Ethereum is going to be proof of stake and they're going to need security, even though they think that it's secure, it's not really secure. So why don't we do this thing? So I launched that idea, and in that sense, it makes sense to have a relationship with them. So totally. So social attack averted and dissolved. The second thing that happened was the ETC Labs, ETC Dev, which is, I think it can be regarded just as two competitors where one won. the way it was done, like, I will give you the money, then I don't give you the money, and you go broke. So I hire your developers. I didn't like it, especially if I am ETC dev on the losing side. But again, it's a corporate thing. Perfect. The thing is that after that, you had the developer team move from one company to the other, so you have less companies. Before we had DCG, DFG, ETC Labs, IOHK. So that's a portfolio of companies and the community, no? A portfolio of companies, and they all balance each other. But now we have very few companies, no? ETC Dev is out, and ETC Dev was the conservative one of all those companies and groups. And today those groups really coordinate a lot, and they have more or less the same ideas, I think, in my opinion. So I think that that is, for me, a latent risk that ETC has. And so if we forget the ETC Dev and we declare that ETC Labs Core is a legitimate core developer team, which I agree with, okay, perfect. But that doesn't mean that you have to take over the GitHub repository, that if there was one independent developer that was maintaining the only native client that was left over, then you hire him and you hire everybody else, then you're creating this monolith, or the monolithic company that has all the resources, the money, the startups, the developers, and it's not the spirit. So every time a new event of these happens from ETC Labs and ETC Labs Core, it really like affects my motivation. The very recently, when we had the date for Atlantis, remember that they decided to change arbitrarily the date of Atlantis and move it to June 1st or July 1st, I don't remember. That was another show of strength. And we had all those conversations, etc. And finally, we decided on block 8,772,000. And then this weekend, yes, last week when with you we were trying to coordinate the communications of Atlantis, we were in peace, everything was in, there was a balance in the force. Yes, I was trying to confirm with SOC, the user SOC1C in Discord. Okay, so I point everything to the GitHub repo where Classic Geth is, which is Eth Classic, and multi-Geth and parity. And then Yas says, no, it's not anymore in Eth Classic. Now it's in ETC Labs Core. So they moved the client back again to ETC Labs Core. So again, my mood is like, boom, crashes again. And I was going to present at the ETC Summit, and I had been writing for 2 weeks, for 10 days, the presentation, a summary of all the articles that I wrote in the last year, which are like 50 articles about ETC. And so it was a summary, etc., and very upbeat, and all the reasons why ETC is going to be successful. And it really creates in me a mental dissonance to be so upbeat when we have this core developer team that have all the resources, all the developers, all the money, etc., constantly, like with microaggressions every 2 or 3 weeks or every month. They do something and then another thing and then another thing. So I felt that what is happening in reality is not the upbeat spirit that I am trying to communicate, in the presentation. So I decided to not participate in ETC Summit and to cancel the presentation, and I just published it. And I'm not going to say anything on Twitter or make a big noise for everybody to see that. But I think that these things are really, I don't know how disappointing, that these things happen every now and then.
I think first, it's a mistake for you to go silent or not be involved or not go to the summit. I think that's a mistake. And it's up to you. I understand that it can be disheartening to have these things happen. At the same time, if we honestly believe that these systems are bulletproof technologically and that the only risk comes from community, it comes from, people like you laying down your sword or your shield or whatever. So look, I'm saying this as I admire the work you've done, and you need to be active. There needs to be a counterbalance, and right now there's a vacuum of counterbalance. So I definitely would want you to reconsider attending ETC Summit. But I do want to zoom out on some of these things that can be considered microaggressions or whatnot. I struggle with thinking about what matters in the end, right? Like, what matters? What at the end of the day, so let's make this assumption that, okay, it's all controlled by one entity. It's just core that's doing development. If that were the case, why did we have to go through 4 calls to set a date and have a final call?
Yeah, there is some balance in the force.
Massive balance, because think about almost any other project. Those decisions are made like this. We had to have a month of negotiating all together, and there were core developers pushing back.
Yes,
people who are getting a paycheck pushing back against.
Those are the moments where my mood goes up.
So
incredibly, when things are more difficult, and I see that even the core developers say, no, guys, don't change the date, and like Wei, he was a hero, my hero at that time, and but when they come again, then everything crashes again. And you said it, there is a vacuum. So it's because ETC is very small. So imagine if I go or not to the ETC Summit, or if one developer says something, it moves ETC, it's because we are still a small community.
Yeah, but like outside of this community, no one gives a shit. I gotta be honest. Like, no one gives a shit. No, most people don't know anything about the GitHub stuff. Most people don't know on top of mind, the last thing anybody remembers about ETC, no developers, because I don't want to get into it hardcore, or we can. I think it was a mistake for Igor to openly, say, okay, we're done, we're closing shop. That hurt ETC, doing it like that. Second is the 51% attack. So those are the 2 things that are at top of mind for anybody not deep into ETC. And
51%, yeah.
Yeah, and you know what? That was a great learning experience for me. I realized, who gives a shit about a 51% attack now? Like, now I understand what the massive concern is. Yeah. It's more on the exchange side.
The 51% attack, I think it's good, because even bad news is good news for marketing.
Right. Get the publicity.
But,
Get back into people's minds.
and also because technically, first, we made the whole industry learn that 51% attacks in proof of work are not that bad, are not that serious.
It's
They
not.
are serious.
Yeah. It's not end. It's
They're
not.
not a catastrophe that finishes. I mean, like I wrote in the article about that with Elaine O. Like in 2017, we were debating about something else, and we were saying if there's a 51% attack on Bitcoin, it's the end. It's finished. And when it happened in ETC, I thought that too. But then nothing happened. It's not that nothing happened, but survived. So evidently, well, it's a bad thing, but it's to a certain extent business as usual.
Yeah. To go full circle on the social attack discussion, you know, I think I understand where concern comes. You don't want centralization, and I don't, and I can see how from a quick glance you can say, look, it's obviously becoming centralized. You know, you have almost all the development happening here, almost all the marketing happening here, almost like I can see that from an outside, like from an inside quick perspective. But if we look at the specific events, the fact that it took so long to set the date is refreshing, right? And I don't think we've seen anything egregious to make me say, okay, you know, decentralization's gone, because, you know, there are so many different community resources, like the Ethereum Classic website, ethereumclassic.org. That's the #1 thing that will show up on Google when you Google Ethereum Classic. Mm-hmm. It has no mention of the ETC Labs GitHubs, none. Just like now, you know, you mentioned that Stev's letter out to people about the upgrade has no mention about the community's Discord. So no one, you know, is in control of the entire brand and the social aspect. I think the devs have shown us that they're going to push back if there's something that's really going to threaten the network. I don't know. I don't have that concern. I can see how it could be on the horizon, but at the same time, I just don't want to see people like you getting demotivated because you have no idea how important your voice is. I cannot stress enough. You know, I was working at ETC Labs for a while. I'm sure that, you know, we were perceived enemies or whatnot. I kept, you know, you were always counterbalancing my thoughts and my ideas.
Well, thank you for telling me that. I motivated you, etc., and that my voice counts and that is valuable. I think that is also because the community is small, and there should be many more people like me and with different reactions, etc. I think that the fact that ETC Labs, even after the last controversy, which was the change of dates, and that we finally, like you say, we finally resolved them after a month. It was a very good, the whole experience was very good because of what you're saying. There's real underlying balance in the force. But after that, the fact that they come again, and the fact that they have money, developers, resources, I think that is something that every time it happens, it has to be called out. And when it's called out, it's my expectation that other people like you and Yaz and Bob and Fyro and Anthony and Michael and Burns, Don't Panic Burns, etc., Cody, they are going to agree, yes, you shouldn't have moved the client from what was the community, AFRI also, from the community GitHub to your GitHub.
But at the end of the day,
instead of saying,
no, here,
that's the thing.
It's just such a
Here,
loss of your energy, Donald.
when exactly this is what I criticize from the reaction of the rest. So my first problem is the fact that ETC Labs does that. My second problem is that when I call it out, I am the lunatic, and of course Steph.
You just need to change the sensitivity nozzle or something, the toggle. There's so much energy, and there's so many things that are going to happen like this. Conserve the energy. Continue doing the blogs you do on Etherplan, because those are fantastic, and those affect every part of blockchain as an ecosystem, right? Like, I think you're a thought leader on decentralization. You know, even though, you know, both you and I are very new to the ESIP process, and we're trying to get into GitHub and learn more on the philosophical area, you're a thought leader. And don't stop that. Continue to funnel the energy towards that. Ignore these, like the GitHub stuff is a game. At the end of the day, it's all open source. Anybody wants, they can copy it. They can do this. You know, I've never really understood the strategic value of the GitHubs other than, or what does CoinMarketCap reference, or what does Wikipedia reference? Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, you know, there's other things. The ESIP I put forward, I think that's a little bit more important, because if we can agree on the messaging, you know, then you avoid these parts where you have centralized communication, where for some reason one entity is the only one that speaks to, you know, Ethermine. You know, that becomes more for me a threat to centralization than things like which repo has what. So I generally try to keep these under half an hour. We're almost at an hour.
Okay.
So I obviously could talk to you forever, and we can definitely, I hope we do this more often.
Yeah, there was another social attack, but I counted 3 in the last year, but the last one we can talk next time.
Keep that last social attack. There's one thing I wanted to ask you before we wrap up. Mm-hmm. So I've been talking a lot to Alex Sankoff lately about the SHA-3 idea. Mm-hmm. How do you feel?
My position with that is that the ideal would be for ETC to have SHA-3. Just by reading, you and me, I don't know if you're an engineer. Are you an engineer or a computer scientist? You and me, we can read about these things, read the papers, etc., trying to understand as much as possible. A lot of it is economic and common sense, and then the engineering is where the math and the highly complicated stuff is. But I think that the important things in terms of decision making and the balance of the force is in the economic side, no? And I think that it would be great for business reasons and the economics of ETC to have SHA-3, because of all the reasons that Alex said, no? That it's much easier for many companies to build ASICs, and a competitive market of ASICs mining in ETC would be much better than the current ETH hash, and anti-ASIC and all that. I think doesn't work. We need the ASICs, and also that it's a simple and proven algorithm. But the thing is that changing core parts of the protocol in the middle of the flight is also something that has social issues, social design issues. Why do you change it? The stability in the long term of the protocol, that information that ETC doesn't change in time, as it proves that it doesn't change, the market perceives ETC and Bitcoin as more secure. So if when we change, it's like we put the chronometer to 0 again, and we have to start building the Lindy effect again.
Yeah, it reminds me of Yaz's article on quantifying immutability. So if we do a change like that, it affects our
0 again, and you have to build trust again. That's why I was against changing the monetary policy, or I would have been if I were in the debates before. But so I'm in those two things. I prefer to wait for the end of this year, next year, to see what are the results. There's some things that everybody in the industry is learning in all blockchains, including the I would say that's why Satoshi Nakamoto is not that relevant today, because in the last 10 years, so much has been learned. And we may learn that changing the algorithm, as long as you're changing it to something which is much more efficient and much better economically and much more secure for the ecosystem, maybe is not such a bad thing to do. But we don't know yet. So there's these two things that we have to balance. And let me congratulate Alex, because he's doing a good job, professional, doing the testing, going through all the steps, being patient. So I think that we need that kind of way of working in ETC, not other networks.
I can't believe how much he's done building Aster completely. I mean, it seems like he's built it completely on his own. He's just taken on so much responsibility, pushing that forward, and it seems to be a logical response to not only the 51% attack, but you need to be the apex predator in your hashing algorithm. Otherwise, you're always.
Yeah, that's the other argument. Yeah, agreed.
Yeah. No,
that's the other argument. And Alex is a good ECIP leader. Every ECIP to happen, whoever wrote the ECIP, for example, when I did my changes and commits and PRs of the changes that I did for the website and all that, I bother them once a week systematically, so they go and approve them, no? And you did your own ECIP, and you have to push it every week, every month, come back. But at some point, they are going to either reject it or approve it. Yeah. But if the leader or the writer or the promoter or the owner of the ECIP doesn't do that work, then it just floats there. And I think that Alex is also doing a good job in that sense.
Yeah, no, applause all around. I mean, I'm a huge Sankoff fan, and hopefully I'm going to be talking to him soon to put some more attention on the SHA-3 change. What I'm trying to do is just get a consensus around how people feel. Hearing that you're in full support is great. And you did identify the concerns, doing things mid-flight, the fact that, we also should build, ASIC producers would have to build these machines in preparation. So yeah, it seems that everybody's aligned so far, which is awesome, because it's one of those big changes. And I've yet to hear a single person have an argument against it. So if anybody's hearing this and has an argument against the SHA-3 change, reach out to me. Let's talk about it.
You should interview the core developers. You should interview SOC1C, Isaac, Shane, Zach Belfort, Zach Meaton, because they're very silent. They work, and I love that philosophy they have. And you should interview Wei, because they are the ones that they have the much better technical, digamos.
Of course. Yeah, opinion. And it was funny when I was discussing it with Alex, he highlighted that he mentioned two people in particular that would be able to do, because he has this really cool idea about how you could, I'm going to screw up explaining what he said, but something about how we could merge with ETH and then do an airdrop to all ETH and ETC holders if there was a new version of anyway. He had some really interesting ideas, and he said it's only Wei or Igor that would be able to do to pull it off. And I didn't realize, I knew Wei was good. I didn't realize how much, respect. And then Igor, I came into the scene after Igor exited. But it's interesting, hearing an engineer's perspective on other engineers. So yeah, I guess I gotta set that up. But if anybody does have opposition, please reach out, because that's the most important thing, is to have counterbalance to these ideas. Right now, it seems that this has massive support. Donald, dude.
Shane, just last thing. Shane and Zach Belfort have very good minds, I think.
Yeah, their process for building fundamentals is they've focused on the right place.
And last thing, Igor, you mentioned him before. I think that Igor, yeah, the fact that he left, I even told him you shouldn't have left. You should be there. Why do you criticize ETC from outside? You should be inside fighting for ETC. And but at the same time, I also understand that if you have your company, somebody steals everything, it's not going to be a happy moment of your life.
It's
And he told me
disheartening.
that
It's
he
disheartening.
told me it's like yeah, it's one of the worst moments of your life. I mean, you started, he spent 2 years doing that. And when I had my 2 startups and I had to shut them down, it was the 2 worst moments of my life.
No, like,
And
it's like losing a child. I mean,
yeah,
I can understand that. You've put your heart into it, and you know it's different when it's a community that lives on.
yeah,
It feels like you've been, betrayed. Uh,
exactly, that's what he told me. It was like having a girlfriend and being betrayed by your girlfriend. So that's why he's not coming back. I hope he comes back again. At least he's building a wallet, no?
yeah, I
Um,
know that that's something he's working on. Hopefully, if we can continue to ask and hope for him to come back, it happens if we say it enough. Donald, we need to do this more often. So
yeah.
we'll definitely be reaching out to you to figure out, because we did an hour. I hope it's as interesting to everybody else as it was to me. And
Maybe you have to. Maybe you can break it up in 3 videos of 20 minutes or
break it up. Oh my God, you're putting more work on me, dude. Oh
something.
my God.